I'm here today with a very special guest, Oscar Miro-Quesada. And Oscar, thank you for joining me. I'm going to give you a proper introduction, but I'll let you come in here just to say hi if you want first.
Thank you, my good brother, Steve, and sacred salutations to all who are listening and tuning in to this union, this convergence of evolutionary vision and heartfelt transformation.
Yeah.
Thank you for opening up the space.
Oh, our pleasure. Yeah, really wonderful to have you. And boy, viewers, for people that don't know, let me introduce Oscar. He's doing really important things in the world. We were real happy to be creating this program so we can come to you live here on this Friday afternoon. So Oscar is the founder of the Heart of the Healer thought originator of pachakuti mesa tradition. It's a cross-cultural shamanism, an internationally acclaimed shamanic teacher and healer, earth-honoring ceremonialist, and author. Don Oscar is OAS Fellow in Ethnopsychology and member of the Evolutionary Leaders Circle and Birth 2012 Welcoming Committee. He's been guiding ethno-spiritual pilgrimages to sacred sites of the world since 1986, with special emphasis on Peru and Bolivia. And just say welcome again, Oscar. Really great to have you with us, and thank you for your many contributions to an awakened world.
Hatun Yushulpaiki Waikicha Steve. That means in Quechua, the mouth of the people in the Andes. It means welcome into my heart, my good brother Steve, and all those present.
Okay, thank you, brother. Yeah, and all present. This is a special program. It's live. We're going to be here on the air for 30 minutes. We're also, since it's live, we're going to be able to get to questions and comments. So if you're out there on social media and you're watching the program and have something for Oscar, the earlier you place your question or comment there in social media, we'll bring it back. I'll be able to see it and I can bring it to Oscar before the program's out. So now the theme here of today's program is why humanity needs shamanism now. So let's just jump right into these things I want to bring to you here, Oscar. So let me start with what brought you to shamanism?
Well, what continues to bring me to this path of service is the fact that it is focused on the sentient, living, soul-animated reality of our indigenous ancestral peoples, in which Mother Earth is understood to be a living, pulsing, breathing being. And we have become so estranged from the sacred dimensions of that experience of connection with our living Earth that the shamanic arts and pathway is one of the most direct avenues that I know of to restore a sense of sacred trust between humankind and the natural world. And that's what continues to motivate my involvement in the shamanic traditions of our original peoples worldwide.
Yes, boy, so important, the natural world. And of course, shamanism has been out doing this healing work for eons of time, and looking at the natural world and looking at how we're living in the world and bringing alchemy and healing to people and to communities. So such important work. And by the way, if you're thinking as you're sitting here looking at Oscar, boy, he looks familiar on the Humanities Team platform. You're right. You probably saw him in this year's the 2022 Global Oneness Summit, where he was on a panel with Adam Hall. And again, doing very important work, he and his organization. So Oscar, what is pachakuti? Let's kind of go down into some of the what is important here in shamanism.
Well, let me backtrack a second. The other thing that drew me to this path is the fact that as a child, I was born and raised and grew up in Peru. And in my most formative years, my father being a physician that worked for the National Institutes of Public Health, he was stationed in very remote rural areas, serving the indigenous populations of Peru. And therefore, I grew up immersed in this mythic reality and this soul animated consciousness of our native peoples. And therefore, from an early age, realized that there was much more to what it means to be a two-legged earth walker than just our conditioned five sensorial reality. And since a child, I've been able to cross through the veil, to be able to access guidance, information, and spiritual help from the other side, if you'd like to call it that. And therefore, it deepened my own sadhana, my own spiritual practice, which eventually became part of my dharma, which is my soul's destiny. So it is so integral to my life that there's not just one experience that prompted me to become a hollow bone, an instrument for the transmission of these wisdom teachings and healing arts. It is more of just saying yes to what my soul's destiny was. And here we are, a friendly holographic projection by the name of Don Oscar. So, pachakuti. Pachakuti means in Quechua, in Runasimi, pacha, world, time, space, earth, place, soil, but overall it means consciousness in the sense of the Tibetan bardo, like a realm of awareness. And kuti means transformation, reversal, renewal. So pachakuti means world transformation, cosmic renewal, and personal death, birth, and transcendence. It's a very ancient Inca precept that talks about the inherent transformational nature of life itself, that everything is in flux, everything is in change, everything is in a process of refinement and evolutionary expansion. And therefore, aligning ourselves with that ever present movement towards something that is more elevated in its spiritual purpose is fundamental to being fashioners of our future, fashioners of a reality that we knew from our ancient peoples was sustainable, regenerative, and extremely important in the maintenance of sacred trust between humans and the natural world. And as we well know, looking at the environmental crises that we all face, there's no better way of befriending the powers, forces, energies, and unseen dimensions of Mama Pacha, of Mother Nature, than to be part of that transformational growth, than to surrender ourselves to that process of evolution that is so innovative, so creative, and unlimited in its possibilities of manifestation into a earth-centered and life-affirming pathway for all of humans. And therefore, pachakuti means simply getting with the program of change, transformation, and evolution in a beneficent, benevolent, and healing purpose. That's how I would define it.
Yeah, beautiful. A real raising of consciousness where we come into who we are and real health and well-being in terms of how we steward the planet and live in our homes, live in our communities. And let me just bring something in too, because some people viewing this, you could think, oh, Steve and Oscar just having, kind of a friendly, not important back and forth here. And so let me just share my perspective and the humanities team perspective. These last 3 or 4 years, there's an elevated concern out in the whole world. Here in the United States, I'm coming to you live from Boulder, Colorado. The smoke, the fires, the extreme weather, wherever you live, I'm guessing that you're experiencing that too. These things are getting worse. They'll continue to get worse until we really come into awareness of who we are, and science and research are affirming that we're deeply interconnected, we're deeply interrelated, that we're actually an emanation of one thing, that Scientists like to talk about the Big Bang, and that was where we were physically one, but we continue to be deeply connected as one, as emanations of one. This is what science and research are sharing. If you're familiar with Nassim Harriman's research, or Greg Braden's, or IONS, or many organizations that are talking, that look at the quantum field, and look at science, and look at life, and share how life really works. And so this conversation we're having is actually about ultimate reality, where we're deeply connected with the earth around us, with each other, with the one that goes by many names. We use the term the divine in humanities team, but a nature, or source, or the field, universe, cosmos, they all work fine. Love, life, they work fine. So, but what we're talking about is how we really open our eyes and become aware and live into the fullness of who we really are, where we're elevating our own consciousness and consciousness out in the world, and then embracing this whole way of living that Oscar so beautifully just described, where we come into this right understanding of how we can steward the planet, how we can live and take care of each other, all of these beautiful things that shamans have been doing for eons of time. So I just want to bring that in. There's a lot of times, I'm not sure we connect the dots between conversations like this and severe weather patterns, things that are going on out in the world, even things like war, which we would not enter into with where we come into elevated consciousness, pachakuti, where we're living in pachakuti. We wouldn't be starting wars, and we wouldn't be supporting wars. Okay, so with that, let me just come back to some more questions that I want to bring Oscar here. So can you explain the pachakuti mesa tradition and why it's important, Oscar?
Certainly, and I'm in total alignment with what you just articulated, my brother. And shamanism, in my humble opinion, is our postmodern unitive narrative. And you know, as I do, that without a unitive worldview, without a vision, the people shall perish. And what Humanity's team is doing, and what the Heart of the Healer is doing, and many of the other activist organizations, spiritual activist organizations in the world are doing, is aligning with an impulse, a cosmic drive to raise the entire vibratory field of consciousness, not just on an individual level as a personal soul or Atman, but on the cosmic level in terms of the universal soul, or Brahma. So mirroring as above, so below, the cosmic with the personal through transpersonal relationship with the unseen dimensions of our human capacity to, through loving intention, transform our world, is what shamanism emerged as. So pachakuti mesa tradition is a practice, a sadhana, a spiritual path that involves the use of ritual to beget or to structure relationships of an earth-sustaining nature. Put simply, imagine yourself sitting in front of an altar, and in that altar you have 4 directions and 7 directions, 4 elements and 5 elements. You have all of those quantum as well as macrocosmic forces and patterns, cycles, tonalities, rhythms, and other forms of expression through mamapacha, through the natural earth, present within these medicine objects, within these ceremonial items that you have gathered by asking permission of the earth to offer you part of her bones in the form of stone relatives, plant relatives, pieces of animal relatives, and your own creative wherewithal by fashioning your own medicine objects, your own power objects. And they're all constellated within this field of reciprocity, of balanced equilibrium between all polarities. And from an energetic point of view, what a pachakuti mesa is, or an altar space is the same thing that any cosmologist and physicist, astrophysicist would understand the unified field to be. So dovetailing into what you said, this is not just about drumming and doing shamanic journeys. This is about working the actual universal pattern of what evolution is, from that first expression that you referred to as the Big Bang into its expansive beauty, of which we now can observe with the Hubble telescope, to be something ineffable, to be a great originating mystery that not necessarily needs to be figured out, but aligned with, befriended, and entered into sacred partnership with, and followed and allow ourselves to be guided by just observing the beauty ways of our Mother Earth and our stars. So the Pachakuti Mesa tradition is a shamanic practice in which you work with all of these elements and powers within this altar ground that is drawn or derived from the cosmovision of our ancient Andean peoples of Peru, of which I was very fortunate to have apprenticed for many years with two of the most famed curanderos and altomisayocs known in the northern coast and southeastern highlands of Peru. Those were my mentors that sanctioned me to bring these teachings and these ritual practices to the northern regions. So I invite everybody who wants to know more about that to just visit our website, heartofthehealer.org, and you can read all about the Pachakuti Mesa tradition of cross-cultural shamanism.
Beautiful, boy, and you make such a wonderful contribution to today's world, because again, yes, there's ceremonies and drumming and all and celebratory kinds of community activities and things, but boy, we're talking about something that's so urgent and so important right now. And if we connect the dots again, the smoke, the fires, the extreme weather, this is a planet here and humanity that's calling out for our attention, that's saying, smell the coffee, that's saying we can't go on living like this, where our understanding of ultimate reality is really severely off, where we think everything is separate. We're separate from the earth, from each other, from the cosmos. Again, science and research share this just simply is not the case. And these shamanistic practices that go back eons of time are really boiling down to one word: healing. Just healing. It's bringing healing to people and families in the world. And this hollow bone expression, in fact, I'm just going to ask you about it here in a moment, Oscar, which you are, is really the highest or a very, very elevated place in the shamanic world, where we surrender ourselves to the very highest good of humanity and the planet. I mean, let me ask you, but that's my understanding of hollow bone. When we step into that, this is kind of what we're doing with our life. Would that be a fair statement, Oscar?
Most definitely. Hollow bone is a term borrowed from the native North American tribal peoples, but we have the same notion spoken about cross-culturally as a hollow reed, or a vessel, or a conduit, or an instrument. It's the same thing. It requires a person who is awake to their own spiritual identity as an immortal soul, which requires a death of the ego, of the fixated personality that is born from a conditioned outside experience of reality. And that is but a sliver of what we are as humans. We are far more than just our social and cultural backgrounds, our human relationships. We are ineffable in nature, really undescribable. And that makes it even more interesting to explore other ways of being the universe itself. So being a hollow bone requires, first of all, a death of one's own sense of self-importance and narcissistic striving, a letting go of our craving for control and approval from the outside world, and a gentle surrender, like you said, to an unexplored territory that is replete of epiphany, of realization, of awe, of wonderment, and of a childlike curiosity in which we can co-create a game of life known as the Puhyay Kausay, the game of life that is based on sacred reciprocity between all beings. Today for you, tomorrow for me, a balanced exchange between what we receive and what we give forward, and being very conscious of that in the sense that our words, our thoughts, our actions are all contributions to 7 generations from now, as we say in the shamanic circles that I serve. For everything that we do is really born of our awareness, our mindfulness of how it's going to impact not just our own lives, but 7 generations into the future. And that makes for a true selfless path in which one's own personal needs often are put to the side in service of a greater good. And to walk this path is not easy, yet it's necessary at this time. So being a hollow bone says simply, show up, be present, speak your truth, and show your beauty unencumbered by fear, doubt, and insecurity, and remain open to the outcome of your actions. That's what being a hollow bone as a servant of healing or wholeness, the restoration of wholeness in the lives of humanity and the entire sacred web of life upon Gaia Pachamama.
Yeah, boy, beautiful. The highest level of service. Yes, and this isn't something new. The urgency is elevated now, certainly in today's world with all that's going on. But shamanic practices go back eons of time. And wow, what a beautiful description of someone in service, Oscar. Thank you for taking us through that. By the way, we have questions pouring in here. Let me get to some. Can you go just a little over, Oscar? Because I see we're already nearing the 30-minute end point, and we've got quite a few questions. If you can go another 5 minutes.
I live in the eternal now, brother, so I'm here.
Okay, good. I'm with you. I'm with you. So, okay, this is from Kathy. She says, how can we participate in shamanism, or do we have to be a Native American?
Good question, Kathy. And let me just remind us all that shamanism originated with the first human impulse to care for something equal or more than you care for yourself. In other words, everybody is shamanic at some level of functioning, of some level of awareness in life. Now, of course, the classic shamanic traditions of our original peoples have a series of tribal mores and ethics and mandates known as the original instructions that you need to adhere to, and many of them require much personal sacrifice. And it's not realistic for modern Western acculturated people to engage in that. Yet nowadays, there's an emerging field known as neo-shamanism, in which people that are not born or affiliated with tribal nations are able to tap into the same source of healing guidance that our ancestral indigenous people have, and be able, with purity of motive and clarity of intention, transmit what they have received from that communion with great originating mystery to a series of non-indigenous peoples, such as yourself, good sister. It's a matter of just being discerning as to who you select as a teacher. Sometimes you select a teacher, but other times the teacher selects you. And the teacher could be anything from a human being or an animal ally, or some family heirloom that was held in the hands of ancient pagan grandmother healers in the European continent that were passed on through you transgenerationally. It's a matter of opening up your ability to dream and to imagine. Shamanism, my good sister, is an imagination empowered, nature venerating, soul vivifying, spirit befriending, sacred community bolstering, love inspired, universal healing vocation, continuously practiced by diverse people worldwide since the Upper Paleolithic era, or even before. In other words, yes, you can practice the shamanic path as long as your heart is pure and your dedication in alignment with the co-creation of sacred earth-honoring community.
Yeah, boy, isn't that beautiful? And who wouldn't want to be that, huh? Don Oscar. Let me read a few of the comments that have come in here. So Teresa says, I feel Mother Earth is connected into our consciousness as well as she is aware we are in a shift and deep cleansing is taking place. Fear and worry and doubt does not help. And Teresa, so true. So, to this last fear and worry and doubt. So that's exactly right. And what this work is about is just elevating this notion of what we call in Humanities Team conscious living. We're talking about shamanism, which is a form of conscious living where instead of being in fear and worry and doubt, there's all this hand wringing out in the world, especially when we consider future generations. Instead of going there, go instead into this place of service, of surrender, of our larger self from our smaller self, from last to first, where Don Oscar is so beautifully describing how we can step into this place of service where we're self-full instead of selfish. Boy, the words that you put around it are very inviting. So, and I'm going to bring in some more comments here. So Cheryl says, I learned something new every time I listen to Don Oscar. And then Christina says, learning from you has been ineffable. Thank you for these reminders. So those are some of the comments coming in here, Don Oscar. So can you repeat the web link? This is from Dan, wants that website link again. And then Jan, the role of a shaman, if you can just kind of come back to that here too, Don Oscar.
The link is theheartofthehealer.org. Theheartofthehealer.org. That is THOTH, an acronym for Thoth, the thrice great Hermes Trismegistus. So the Heart of the Healer, aside from being an avenue for the apprenticeship of the pachakuti mesa tradition of cross-cultural shamanism, is also a shamanic mystery school in which the Hermetic and Gnostic mystery traditions throughout the world are honored and woven together into a cosmovision, a worldview of humanity's place within the evolution of our cosmos as a whole, and how, as adepts of the great work, we can gather together and form critical mass centers of human ceremonial prowess and wherewithal, in which our alignment with the powers and forces of the natural world are given expression and influence the Akashic field, influences the noosphere, our planetary noosphere, and without attachment to what we've done, allow a wisdom greater than ourselves in these deeper and more elevated spheres of consciousness to trickle down into those still not awake on planet Earth. And therefore, on a larger scale of influence, the heart of the healer is dedicated to that evolutionary leap in consciousness on a global scale. Now, the path, the best way I could define the shamanic earth walk that I continue to learn, because my own teacher always reminded me to keep it green, never become an expert at anything, always a student. And to my best ability, the shamanic path is about teaching love by the way you live. Everything in shamanic service is a labor of love. And by love, we mean a compassive, empathic, altruistic engagement in which you allow life to meet you where life feels it has the greatest opportunity for apotheosis, for a spiritual transmogrification of your physicality into what we know as a shining one, a luminous being, a being who, much like the bodhisattvas of the Buddhist tradition, or the shining ones of the ancient Gnostic traditions of the Middle East, or even those mythic beings that populate the skies that are increasingly being witnessed throughout the heavens of our earth. All these beings have been you before. And into the shamanic path, we understand that whatever we encounter as a archetypal presence, as a demonic ally, not demonic, but demonic in the sense of the Greek use of the word, an imaginal ally or friend, whatever, that is you in the future. That is you seeing yourself mirrored in the beautiful visions of our ancestors. So I hope that with this pretty consciously poetic elucidation to your question, that if you re-listen to it, it'll be good medicine for your soul, my good sister. Thank you.
Yes, it will be good medicine for your soul. Yes, and being an expression of love, is there any higher calling than that? And again, in today's world, where there's now a lot of deep reflection, where this time of year is one of deep reflection anyway, but with all the things going on in the world where people are more and more wanting to get in touch with their deeper values and the contribution that they want to make and they can make in their lifetime, these things that you're talking about are, I'm sure, deeply resonating. I know that because we've got comments and questions flying in here, Don Oscar. So let me, there's a person, Jack says, I could listen to Don Oscar speak for hours. Do you have a book? If so, how can I buy a copy?
Well, it just so happens that my latest book was just published and it launched in October through Common Sentience, and it's entitled Shamanism, Personal Quests of Communion with Nature and Creation. And you can find that at your preferred bookseller, or if you're kind enough to go to Amazon.com and just look Shamanism, Oscar Miro-Quesada. If you'd like to read posting a little review would be deeply appreciated in this algorithmic dependent age that we live in. It makes a huge difference being able to disseminate these wisdom teachings in a good way in the world. But yes, I do have that book. I also have Lessons in Courage, which illumines my own journey moving into this service path. And then I have an audio program through Sounds True called Healing Light. And they're all about the Peruvian shamanic traditions and how they can be integrated into our postmodern lifeway. But shamanism, personal quest of communion with nature and creation, is unique in the sense that it also has 25 other riveting, compelling stories written by invited authors, some of which have studied with me, some of which I don't even know, but every one of them who have had an encounter with the sacred dimensions of life in a shamanic manner that had a deeply transformative, positive effect on how they live their life in service to the greater good of all. So that is, aside from what I've written in there, you have these personal stories by practitioners themselves, which makes the book very unique. I hope you enjoy the read.
Yes, I'm sure. I'm sure she will. Or actually, that was Jack. I'm sure he will. So let me read a couple more comments here, and we've gone a little over. So we'll wrap this up. But actually, this is the beginning of our, as you watch me and Don Oscar together, not the end. He was, as I mentioned, part of the Global Oneness Summit 2022 in October. And there are all kinds of beautiful things that we're planning to do together. So Peggy shares, the resonance is like listening to the sound at the center of the drum. So that's a beautiful, kind of a poetic thing to share, Peggy. Thank you for that. And then Anna says, deep gratitude for the supportive teachings for our hearts. So Anna, and thank you for that. Really beautiful. This has really been just a fantastic program. So good to be with you here on this program, Don Oscar. Thank you. So let me just share, again, he was part of the Global Oneness Summit 2022, and thank you for that. And we're a 501c3 nonprofit, if you are new to Humanity's team. And we were called then to create a conscious streaming platform to get teachings like Don Oscar's out in the world, into every country, into every major language, with a price that is as low as we can make it. We've dropped it $200 since we started streaming. It's now $3.99 or $39.99 a month. And we have a one-for-one program. We're a nonprofit. So, and as we know, outside of the United States in particular, even in this country, there are people that could not afford this platform, even as we have been bringing the price down. So the way our one-for-one program works is when people subscribe, and Don Oscar's programs from the Global Oneness Summit, other things that we might do together would be on the platform. Other people, Neil Donald Walsh and Michael Bernard Beckwith and Greg Braden and Nassim Harriman. And again, there are hundreds of programs, actually, video trainings that are on the platform. And then we do live events throughout the week as well that are all a part of this conscious community. And when you subscribe as a paid subscriber, we then gift a free subscription to an underserved, underprivileged individual that couldn't afford it, that's on the conscious journey, and there's just no way they could afford this. You may know, our particular download that we received was to help make conscious living pervasive worldwide by 2040 in the next 18 years. So things like severe weather patterns and fires and smoke and war and a lack of clean water and all of these things, that we can put these things behind us, and that future generations can live even more beautifully than we have on the planet. So that's our whole reason. That's our why. That's our whole reason for being here in Humanity's team. And so when we're with somebody like Don Oscar, who's bringing these practices and these beautiful descriptions of how we can live our life, it's like, wow, this is our thing. This is what we love to do. And I just want to thank you and your organization, your wife, your organization. If you might share again that website people can go to see your resources, follow your teachings, and see where your programs are going to be out in the world. Please do, Don Oscar. And thank you so much for joining me here this afternoon. Wow, very beautiful discussion.
It's a true honor, Steve, and as requested, it's www.heartofthehealer.org. And allow me to just share a saying, an adage that I hold dear to my heart, and it goes like this: when we surrender the need to figure it all out and cultivate the capacity to let it all in, then our earth walk becomes a dance of healing service to our world. More than saving, our planet needs loving. That is the core of what this universal shamanism pathway is about, that I'm honored and humbled to be able to share with all earnest aspirants of initiation into the great work. We are one here now as light.
One here now, yes. And boy, more than saving, it needs loving. Isn't that just, I'm sure a lot of hearts are pounding on that one. That's so true. And that's our invitation. So, and as we leave this program, let me just really come to this call to action. That's why this is the invitation we're extending. And it's the reason we're doing programs like this one with Don Oscar today, is just as was brought in here earlier by Teresa, who said, you know, we don't need fear or worry or doubt. It doesn't help. So that's not where we want to go. And there is so much of that in today's world. So instead, we can launch ourselves into living this way as loving presence, as a part of the one in our larger self, where we surrender the smaller self, which we could call the ego. And boy, if you want to find the deliciousness of life, of true prosperity, and I come from Silicon Valley, where people think, oh, that's where, you know, prosperity and stuff. No, it's not. It's not. The true prosperity is what Don Oscar's putting into words here. You know, the deliciousness of life. Oh boy, you know, this is where we really find it. There's no fool's gold. This is the real thing. So again, thank you so much for being with me, Don Oscar, for your many contributions to an awakened world. And you'll see more of our dear friend here with us. And viewers, thank you for spending part of your day with us. And hey, let's just, again, a call to action. Let's stretch into these things that feel inviting, that we resonate with. You're watching because you're conscious. So we're all on this conscious journey, but we can stretch and go further, and it feels so good. And as we do that collectively, then, as Bruce Lipton likes to say, we create this heaven on earth. Goes by many names too, but that's our invitation. We know in our hearts that can be, and that's why Humanity's team is here, so we can all journey together, hand in hand, heart in heart, to this destination where all of these beautiful things that we're talking about become the norm, become our cultural story. So let's do it together. And it's Friday afternoon, at least here in the United States. Have a fabulous rest of the day, everybody. Thank you for being with us. And I'll be back with you live next Wednesday at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 noon Eastern. I'll be with Jacqueline Way and Dr. Roshanak. They're the two that run the Humanities team program on Clubhouse. It's that neat audio platform. Neil Donald Walsh is with them every week on Wednesdays, beginning at 1 p.m. Pacific. So I'm going to have them with me live next Wednesday. Join us. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Don Oscar. Peace and love and blessings, everyone. And we'll be back with you here next week. Take care.
Adios.